everybody, welcome back to the channel. So in my last video I went out fishing with my buddy Marvin, and I fished with some lures that I repainted myself. There's none of the lures I actually made. It was some older lures that I had. I just put a base coat over and put my own twist of colors on. So today in this video I'm going to show you how I paint one of my favorite colors. It's not a color that I used in that video, but it's a color I've used through the week and on my lunch break, and I've caught some really nice trout. I call it the Hulk. It's a Hulk color scheme with a black kind of iridescent top, a chartreuse, the kind of gold transition side, and a purple bottom. It's a bait that I've used a lot, that color in a lot. I've got a couple different baits that I've actually got painted in that, and it's been working really well for me. We're going to repaint this little 2 3/4, 3-inch Yozuri twitch bait, and I'm going to show you how I go about painting it. I'm not a professional by any means. I just started this maybe a couple months ago, and I'm really getting into it. So let's dive in, and I'll show you exactly how I go about painting my Hulk color scheme. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Alrighty guys, so the paint colors, like I said, that we're going to be using is this Folk Art Color Shift Yellow Flash. I mix it and this green flash by Folk Art together to do my body. I use this Wicked color white as the base for my bait, which is what I'll wind up covering the entire bait with. This is the black, just a standard acrylic black that I use for the top. These are the two colors I mixed together for the bottom side, just to kind of give it a little bit more flash. The Color Shift in a purple flash, and just a Wicked colors purple. And then this is what I finish off my top of my bait, is with a little flash iridescent, and it gives it this really nice green kind of flash on top of the black, and it really kind of brings the bait together. So to get started, I'm just going to let you know I'm going to be talking over my compressor here. It's not too noisy, but it does give off a little bit of noise. So first thing I do is I wipe down all my baits with a little bit of alcohol, just to make sure I get any impurities off the bait, so I know the paint is going to stick really well to the bait. So I've already taken care of that. So first thing I do is I'll get my white and I'll give it a quick shake. And then I also use this, and this is just a standard reducer that I use to thin down my paint some. So I start out with a couple drops into my little mixing pan here of the white. Don't need too much for this little bait. And then we'll add a few drops of this reducer. This reducer just helps it come through the spray gun a little smoother, a little easier. Probably gonna need a little bit more white than that. Give it a quick mix. And just dump it right into my gun. Some people mix their paint in their gun. I'm not too keen on that. I really like to make sure that I get a good mixture before it goes into my gun. That way I'm not trying to mix my paint up in that little hopper there. And so this is what I do before I start painting, just to make sure the paint's going to flow real nice through my gun. Give it a couple sprays. Now all I do is I'll take them, make sure I do this right here in front of the camera. Take it here and just start my paint. Just want to make sure you get a nice even coat all around your bait. About right. So what we'll do now, again, it's going to be a little noisy here, is take my heat gun and I'll heat set this paint to help the process speed up a little bit. You want to be careful though when you're doing this that you don't have your heat gun on too high or too close to your bait, because you can make your bait or your paint bubble by drying it too quickly. Alrighty, I got my gun all cleaned out. So next we're going to work on the yellow flash and the green flash. Now I like these two combinations because in this yellow flash there's a little bit more gold to it. So as the bait starts to rotate through the water, you'll get a nice gold and chartreuse flash together. So I add just a couple of drops of that, and then one drop, usually maybe a drop and a half of the chartreuse, and it gets this real nice color. Mixed up a little bit too much paint, but that's alright. So you can start to see that gold in there in the chartreuse, and I'm telling you, when it's coming through the water, it makes a crazy awesome color. I get it to a consistency of, I would describe it as like skim milk or really watered down milk. So yeah, I guess you could say skim milk. Just kind of rotate it back and forth. It's really just a trial and error type deal. Yeah, I just don't want it too thick though, or it'll start gumming up your gun. Got my gun all cleaned out. We're just going to pour it right back in there. I'll take the bait and do the same thing that we did with the white. Give it a couple test sprays. I'm just going to do the body now. Definitely don't want to overwork your bait. You get a good base on it, hit it with the air gun or the heat gun or a hair dryer if you got that, whichever one you prefer. Just to make sure you get nice even coats on your bait. But as you can tell, you can really start to see that gold and chartreuse kind of work together. I really like the combination that this has. Give her a nice, good heat set here, and then we'll move on to the black and the purple. For the black portion of this, I use my little stand here. It helps me make sure I get a nice, clean line across the back of my bait. Drop my hemostats and I'll just clamp it into position. With this black paint, it's nice. This is the paint that actually came with my airbrush kit, and I don't actually have to water this down at all. It runs through the gun pretty nice. So with the black, we really don't need too much, only a couple drops that go into the gun. I usually put about 2 or 3 just to make sure I have enough paint run through, and even if I have to add more, I can. I'm going to try to do this as best I can in front of the camera for you guys. Take that line nice and dark through there. I'm going to bring it around the sides just a wee bit here. Sorry, the gun's blocking. I'm sorry. Try to get about as even as I possibly can. Got a little bit of light spot right there. There we go. It's probably about right. You can see now. Yeah. So we got the bait flipped over. We're gonna start on our purple color. Start with the purple flash here. Add a couple drops to the mixing bowl. Don't need too much of this. There we go. And then just a single drop of the Wicked Detail Violet, just to give it more of a darker color. See that? It's got a really nice bit of blue in there. Really don't need too much of this either, just covering the bottom. So we're just going to run that line straight up the center and try to keep it on just the bottom side. Don't really want too much rolling over the side on this one. I do these in really light coats because I really want to make sure that this is super smooth on the bottom. That's about right. See, now as that bait rolls, rather than it just being a flat purple, it's got a nice bit of blue flash to it. Just about right. Yeah. Alrighty, let's get the gun cleaned out, and we're going to put our last little touch of iridescent flash to the bait, and it's really going to help pop off the top part of it. So yeah, give me one sec. For the last bit, I use this flash iridescent on top. It really gives it this nice greenish kind of bluish hue to it, and I use it on a lot of my baits that I paint. It's one of my favorite additives. So we just dump a little bit there in the bowl. We're going to reduce it down again because this has some of that glitter in there. Alrighty. So with this one, I don't really hold back. Kind of let the thing go full throttle and really get that top a nice coat. Once again, you don't want to overwork it. I do use the heat gun quite a bit for this process. I don't want my paint pooling up or causing drips or anything of that nature. But as you can see, one sec. As you can see, this top went from having just that dark black back to now having this kind of greenish hue to it. Add just a bit more. Yeah, see that now? I think that's gonna be it, folks. Yeah. Yep. That right there would be one of my favorite paint jobs that I do on my baits, and I call it the Hulk. Just about finished up with this bait. The last thing we have to do is put on a clear coat to help protect the paint and the bait itself, because with this paint, you can't just paint it and go out and fish it. The paint will actually wear off relatively easy. So the clear coat that I use is the Envirotex Light Pour On, but I just brush it on with a brush. It's not the only option that you can use. There's much better options, but for me and for my setup that I have, this is the easiest option, and it works relatively well. There's plenty of other options out there. KBS Diamond is one really good one. There's some UV coats that you can use where you have to have a UV light. Sometimes they require a turner. I have a lure turner because with the pour on, you want to brush it on and then leave it on the lure turner until it's relatively dry. Drawback with this is I usually have to put on a couple coats, and it takes a day or so, probably a day or two, before the bait itself can actually be fished and it's completely cured. So all we have left to do now is to put on the eyes. So I put a little dab of super glue where the eyes used to be, just a tiny dab. I'll take my eyes here. One fell right off for me. I position my eyes looking downward. I don't really have a reason why, just kind of the way I put my eyes on my bait. Push on there real nice. By the time you get your clear coat on there, I already got the other side done, your clear coat on there, your eyes are basically about ready to and dry to be ready to go. So with the Envirotex, it's very important to make sure that you have your mixture as close as evenly as you can. So what I've done is I went to Walmart and picked up a couple of these children's syringes, and then I drilled a hole in top of each one of my bottles and put it in there. That way I can get the most accurate as possible. So I'll draw out some, and then I get an air pocket, push it back and draw it again, and then it gives me a nice sealed amount. More than enough than I need. I could probably actually go a little less, especially for just one single bait. Pull that off there. Just a real light amount not much at all. And we're going to do the exact same for the hardener. Turn it upside down, pull, push to get the air pocket out of there, and pull down. Try to get it right close to the same amount. Now I take my tube, push it into my little mixing cup. Take my popsicle stick and give it a good stir. I want to make sure that you get all that resin mixed really well together. You'll see some bubbles forming, and I'll show you what I do to help combat that and get rid of a good majority of those. Usually they don't transfer onto your bait with the way that I help get rid of mine. So okay, so what I do to kind of help get rid of some of those bubbles there, they're really just kind of surface bubbles, is I'll take my little micro torch here, I'll get it lit and kind of just pass it over top of that. And it gets rid of a lot of those bubbles. It's not 100% foolproof, but it does make a huge difference. So then all you do is take your bait, get you some of that on there on your brush, and just give it a good one over. First coat, I usually put a good thick heavy coat on there. The turner will really help even that out, smooth it out a lot smoother. Give it a nice healthy coat. I always brush one direction on the bait, then back the other, and I'll just continue that back and forth till I feel that the bait is coated real nice and evenly. Like I said, usually with the Envirotex, I put 2-3 coats of this stuff on there to make sure that the bait's really protected, because the fish that I'm going after, which is speckled trout, redfish, flounder, they all have teeth. And I've learned the hard way on my first couple baits that if you do not put a good thick coat on your baits, your paint job will not last. One important thing you want to do too, especially after you're done putting your resin on here, your epoxy, is that you want to take a toothpick or shish kebab stick, something of that nature, something pointy, and you want to clean out your eyes, your line ties, and where your hook hangers go, and all that, just to make sure that epoxy does not harden, because you can get it out with a blade. I usually use like a X-Acto knife if it gets that bad, and carve it out, but it can just makes your life a lot easier just to take a toothpick. And if you can see, there's a little bit of epoxy in that line tie eyelet. Just run your toothpick through it, wipe it off. You see that cleans it right. Hang on, come on, can't focus camera. Right there, cleans it right out. Same thing with the back. Just make sure you get them all nice and cleaned. There we go. And just like that, that bait has its first coat of epoxy and is ready to go on the turner. I'll show you my turner here in a second. Give me one sec. Okay guys, so this is my lure turner setup. I made it from a old cup turner that my wife had and she wasn't using anymore. Put a bigger piece of PVC here. It had a little bit smaller than a 1/2 inch for some reason, but this is just a 1/2 inch coupler head and just a 1/2 inch piece of PVC, and then I hot glued some alligator clips in there. Yeah, it seems to work out for me fine. I've got 2 other lures on here that's been on the turner since this morning. They're still a bit tacky, but after you get your epoxy on your bait, throw it on the turner for, like I said, 8 to 10 hours, and then I coat them up one more time. I usually do it overnight, and then they're dry in the morning. So this one will probably be ready by Tuesday for me to actually fish by the time I get another coat or 2 on this bait. All right guys, that is the Hulk paint scheme that I came up with. Yeah, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, not super detailed, but it does catch fish. I've caught a lot of nice quality trout on it. As soon as this bait gets done epoxied up, I'm going to take it out, do some fishing. Be looking for that video, because should be able to get on some real nice trout with that one. Keep it locked here on Jordan's Fish Tales. Let me know if you want to see any other paint schemes. Please hit that thumbs up button if you like this video, and I'll catch you guys next time.